a man who conquered all of Rome. He crushed Gaul. He won a civil war against his own people. His name alone made enemies tremble. But on March 15, 44 BC, that same man fell bleeding on the floor of a Senate meeting, killed by his own countrymen. This is the story of how Julius Caesar died. Not the Shakespeare version. Not the Hollywood version. What actually happened? Rome was the most powerful force in the known world. But inside, it was tearing itself apart. Caesar had ended decades of civil war. He'd given Rome stability. The common people loved him, the soldiers, the poor, they were all on his side. But the wealthy, powerful men of the Senate? They were terrified. Why? Because Caesar had just been declared dictator for life. And Rome had thrown out its last king 500 years earlier. To them, the word king was poison. So they made a decision. If Caesar wasn't stopped now, he'd crown himself emperor. This wasn't the work of 2 or 3 men. More than 60 senators were part of the plot. But the real mastermind wasn't Brutus. It was Gaius Cassius Longinus, a sharp, bitter general, driven by a genuine belief that killing Caesar would save the Republic. But Cassius knew his name alone wouldn't be enough. He needed a symbol. That symbol was Marcus Junius Brutus. Why? Because centuries earlier, one of Brutus's ancestors had helped drive out Rome's last king. If a Brutus killed a king again, this wouldn't just be murder. It would be poetic justice, written into history itself. Fate had tried to warn Caesar. A soothsayer had told him, "Beware the Ides of March." His wife, Calpurnia, dreamed that night that Caesar lay dying, bleeding in her arms. She begged him, "Don't go to the Senate today." Caesar hesitated. But then came Decimus Brutus, one of the conspirators himself, who mocked him, "Will the great Caesar be frightened off by a woman's dream?" Caesar's pride won. He walked out the door, straight toward his death. The theater of Pompey. The Senate, in session. Caesar took his seat. Senators gathered around him, as if presenting a petition, a request to recall an exiled brother. As Caesar waved it off, Tullius Cimber grabbed his toga and yanked it down from his shoulders. This was the signal. Casca struck first, a glancing blow to the neck. Caesar spun, grabbed at the blade, maybe even cried out. And then they all closed in. The senators stabbed wildly, blindly. It was such chaos that some of them accidentally wounded each other. Caesar tried to run, but blood, and his own toga, had blinded him. He fell, right at the base of a statue of his old rival Pompey. 23 stab wounds. A physician later examined the body. Only one was actually fatal. Now, here's the big one. Es-tu brute? The line everyone knows? It's fiction. Shakespeare wrote it 16 centuries later. The ancient historian Suetonius says Caesar may have said nothing at all, or possibly something to Brutus in Greek. Other sources say he simply pulled his toga over his head and accepted his death in silence. The conspirators expected to be hailed as heroes. Instead, the opposite happened. Caesar's will was revealed. He'd left money to ordinary Roman citizens and named his young grandnephew Octavian as his heir. Then Mark Antony delivered a funeral speech so powerful, it turned public opinion completely. The assassins went from being seen as liberators to traitors, almost overnight. Brutus and Cassius were forced to flee Rome. The republic they had killed Caesar to save died along with him. 13 years of civil war followed. And in the end, Octavian himself became Augustus, Rome's first emperor. The very thing they had stabbed Caesar 23 times to prevent came back anyway. Bigger. Permanent. That might be history's greatest irony of all.